So you want an urban garden in New York? Let me help you. Let me show you the way. Honestly, I personally want to see more people of color in gardens, especially areas that are being gentrified. So we're going to get into it. I'm not holding anything back when it comes to this conversation. So let's get to it. So when it comes to New York City and urban gardening, did you know that there are more than 500 community gardens in New York? Talk about abundance. There is space. There is definitely space for you, okay? So I'm just gonna talk about all the basics. What is a community garden? A community garden is public land owned by the city where neighbors share green space to grow their own food. That's like the simplest definition, right? So the land that we see, the land that I'm in right now is city owned and not privately owned, right? And that is the case for most community gardens in New York. So when it comes to gardening, I'm sure if you live in Brooklyn, the city, Queens, Harlem, you've walked down the block and you've seen a community garden. There's literally one on every single other block, honestly. There are so many, and I actually need some callaloo, so give me a second, I need to go to the back. So I'm currently telling you all of the basics so that you're prepared when you go into a community garden and you know the foundation of it, right? When it comes to community gardens, there are two specific organizations that kind of lead or more so in charge of making sure that the garden is running and operating smoothly. One is Green Thumb. They are the biggest movement in NYC. And then there is NYRP, I believe, New York Restoration Projects, yes. So the foundation of gardens started with the people in the neighborhood, right? In the 1970s, there were a ton of abandoned buildings as well as abandoned lots, and the community members took it upon themselves to go ahead and create these green spaces. And we have to remember that a lot of the people in the area were people of color, black people, etc. So community members took it upon themselves to clean out that area and turn it into what we see now, a thriving garden. An example of this would be Mr. Prince and his father, who started this garden in the 1970s, I believe. Yeah, 1975. And what they did, this was a trash lot, right? It was a vacant lot that was filled with trash. And they went ahead and they took it upon themselves to clean it out and start a garden. And that is how most of the gardens in New York were founded, by community members. So most of the gardens that we see today were community-led initiatives, right? And then Green Thumb came into the space. So there was no Green Thumb prior, which is a part of the Parks Department. I've been really enjoying dressing up and coming to the garden. So this is my outfit of the day. I found everything in my closet. I made the hat actually. It's actually on my channel. I believe I made it like 2 years ago. So garden season starts, I believe, in spring, and then it runs until about October, right? So now we're about to be in winter. This is the perfect time for you to organize yourself for 2026 and so forth, right? Personally, when it comes to community garden, you kind of want to feel it out. This is my own bias, but I personally love to visit different gardens around my area and see which ones resonate with me, because all energies are not going to clash well, right? And there are an abundance. For example, I live in Bed-Stuy, and there are abundance of community gardens in Bed-Stuy, and I've actually visited a lot of them. And most of them I did not want to be a member in. So it's really important that you also go and you do field research, you know, what feels right. Will I mesh all these people? Because in community gardening, it is a community, right? You are there for the community to help, to bond, to do community work together. It's not necessarily that you're just getting a plot and you're selfishly growing for yourself. Yes, you are growing for yourself, but there are certain things that are in place in order for everybody to benefit from having this space together. I told Mr. Prince this is how I'm dressed today.
Oh my God.
How you feel about my outfit today, Mr. Prince?
The lady from the Garden of Eden.
Just having fun.
Right. That's
of
what.
sharing and giving.
Absolutely. That is what life is about.
That's it.
Having fun, playing, sharing, and giving.
That's it.
Yes. Woo. Give thanks.
Give thanks.
So these are the steps I recommend when it comes to finding a garden that resonates with you. So first, I recommend walking around your area and looking at the gardens around your area, looking in the gate and seeing how the garden makes you feel upon sight, right? From there, I would recommend looking at the sign. Every garden usually has a sign on the fence, and it has all the information in regards to what the garden is called, who it's owned by, and how to get into contact with the garden. They usually have an email on the fence. So then I would do that. I would email and figure out when their work days are. At this point in time, if you're doing this in the winter, work days are no longer in place. Like I said, the garden season closes, I believe, in October. So after that, the garden won't be operating until next spring, right? So at that point, you want to go ahead and email them and just request that you are on their email list so that you are in the loop for the next season. After that, most times people do reach out to you and they will let you know what's happening in the garden, how to get involved, XYZ. Most gardens have the same policies, but some vary. To become an actual garden member, I believe there are usually 3 things that are in place. One being work hours. It's a community garden, so you do have to give hours. You can't just come and grow your own food and not actually tend to the community garden, right? So work hours usually cover different projects that need to get done in the garden. That's mostly it. Depending on the time of season, you're usually weeding, you're watering, you're planting, you're maybe building even beds, you know. The list is endless when it comes to what needs to be done within the garden. Once you accumulate your hours, every garden has different hours in regards to how many you need to become a member. After that, there is usually garden meetings, and every garden varies. For example, for the gardens that I'm a part of, you have to attend 2 garden meetings for you to meet the requirements to become a member. And then the third thing is usually membership dues. And honestly, it depends on the garden. I believe all gardens actually. I believe the policy of Green Thumb is that you can't turn anyone away if they can't afford a due. So if you can't afford it, you can still be a member. So don't let somebody say, oh, if you can't pay, then you can't be. No, that's a lie, okay? Tell them I said that's a lie, all right? You know what is true now. I also do want to speak about the disparities within gardens and who has access to them, especially in Bed-Stuy, in that as gentrification continues to blossom, that's what I'm gonna call it, it's interesting who you see within the gardens and how access can be very hard to gauge depending on who's in the garden. This is why I'm sharing this information, because it is very simplistic, yet sometimes people overcomplicate it, you know, for their own benefit. Look at this beauty. Oh my gosh, I've got the biggest eggplant back here. It's a monster. It's not that massive, but wow. Beautiful. Like I said earlier, Green Thumb came into the space after residents took it upon themselves to make gardens, right? In green spaces. So Green Thumb specifically helps with legal licenses as well as tools, soil, compost. We also have a communications person, right? To get us what we need. If we need funding for water, if we need funding for other things within the garden. So that's how that comes into play. But the community garden is still primarily run by residents within the area. Another thing I wanted to speak on is when you do go searching for a garden, please be mindful and be respectful. Please do your research when it comes to history and the space that you are to occupy, and give reverence as well, right? There are people who have been there from the beginning. For example, not too many founders are still around when it comes to the 500 gardens that exist in New York. 500 plus, it's like 550, even more than that at this point. But not all of the founders are still here, right? A lot of them are Mr. Prince's age and they have passed on, you know, rest in peace. But it is a beautiful thing to have a founder in the garden still. And it's really important that there is reverence in the space. I've seen people come into gardens where the elders are present and have been here and even probably started it, and there's just rudeness and nastiness that personally I'm not going to condone. If I see it, I'm going to call it out. I don't care, right? But yeah, there's just this type of entitlement that comes with gentrification, but also just the society that we live in today that is so selfish, honestly, and individualistic, in that everything is mine, mine, mine. No, it's not yours, all right? It's not just yours. Sorry to burst your bubble, it's not just yours. So it's really important that when you come into these spaces, you come into it with a humble heart, you know, not even humble heart, with curiosity and the willingness to learn, right? Yeah. That's my little speech. I could go even deeper, but I'm gonna leave it right there. Oh, this is a beautiful tomato. Wow. My tomatoes are finally, wow. My tomatoes are finally ripening. I have so many and they're all green. I feel like there's so much more I could speak about when it comes to the topic of urban gardening in New York City. And let me know if you want me to make another video a bit more detailed, you know, and going deeper into gentrification and how it affects the people who started the garden even, you know? Yeah. Also, when it comes to green spaces, it's quite a conundrum in that it's quite a conundrum in that the better your garden looks, the more value the property is deemed as, and that can kind of cause an issue with development becoming an issue, right? Because gardens like this attract gentrifiers. There's no way that gentrifiers are going to, and the thing is, someone may call me a gentrifier too, right? Whatever, but let me just say white gentrifiers to be specific, right? They may see a garden like this and say, wow, this is stunning. How do I get access to this, right? And how do I move into this area? Majority of the people who live in this area feel as though they are entitled to spaces like this that they did not create from scratch. I'm actually vice president of a garden, two gardens, a garden. I'm currently vice president, right? And I remember I was in the front of the garden and I locked myself in because if it's not open hours, I'm not opening the garden. Like, I'm not working for free. This is already all free, right? So there was a white man passing by and he starts pulling on the gate and I'm like, we're closed. And he's like, how do I get in? And I just felt like that was the rudest thing ever. Like, luckily I was in a peaceful garden, because if I was not in a peaceful state, I would have been cussing somebody out, but I was able to hold my tongue, yeah? And that's just the notion of green spaces that look like this. It's like, it begs the question of who actually has access to green spaces that God created for everybody to enjoy, not just a specific demographic, right? Everybody gets to enjoy green spaces like this. Everybody should be able to go on a hike. Everybody should be able to go into nature. This is what heals, really and truly. I'm not even talking about growing your own food. I'm talking about the holistic aspect of green spaces. This is what heals the body. I honestly feel like that when it comes to green spaces, there are disparities in who actually gets to enjoy them. And that is why I'm making this video, because I honestly want to see more people like me in the garden. Since I became vice president, I have seen more Black people in the garden. Prior to that, you couldn't really get anyone Black in there. And I'm not talking about this garden, I'm talking about the other garden. And I kind of want to do a video specifically on that garden because it's very interesting in regards to its location and what is around, right? Maybe I'll do that video in another time, but yeah. When I was in college, all I did was race-related classes, and I never knew, yeah, that all that work would bring me here, in that I just felt like, oh my gosh, the more I learned about race, I realized that it's holistic in that it affects every single area of life, right? I see myself going down the route of environmental injustice versus all the other disparities within this world that we live in. And more so from a sense of not look what they've done to us, but more so how the hell do I take back my power? Because honestly, at this stage of my life, I'm not begging anybody for anything. I I don't expect anybody to give me anything. I'm taking what I know is mine, right? So the only way that you can do that is to know what has been taken, truly. So yeah, when it comes to green spaces, I'm really, really passionate about them, and also passionate about, okay, how does everybody have access versus just a specific demographic, right? And how do people feel comfortable being in these spaces as well? So it is a fact that most gardens in New York do have a wait list when it comes to actually getting your own plot, right? Or your own bed. Most gardens are not built like this. This is one of a kind, honestly. And we are actually about to redo our entire infrastructure when it comes to a garden. We're doing that all winter. So this may not even look like this next year, right? So thank God for what it looks like now. And I'm really grateful to be here in this present moment. So when it comes to having an actual plot, most gardens do have wait lists. A way that you can expedite your process to actually getting a space to grow your own food is by being a part of the community versus just wanting to take, you know? Don't be a taker, be a giver. I never thought these words would come out my mouth, but look at me, I've grown so much. But for real, don't be a taker, be a giver, right? This is a community garden, it's not private land. If you want private land, you can take your money and go buy some. But if you live in a city like New York, the chances are you're going to be a part of the community garden. That's what you have available to you, right? So how can you benefit the community that you are entering? What skills do you have? What are you willing to learn? How are you willing to help? How can you help some of the elders within the garden? What I've realized is that there are actually a lot of Black male elders who love to garden, and it's just such a beautiful sight, honestly. I work for myself, so I bike throughout New York City at random times, and just to see who's occupying a garden at different times of the day can be very informative for what's happening within your environment as well. Personally, I've been offered a bed in so many different gardens, and that's due to the relationship I have with the elders within that garden, right? Even if there's no bed, even if there's a waiting list of 100, the elders are like, oh, you can just share my bed with me, right? And that's the nicest thing ever. That's never my intention, but it's always an offering that's given to me. So yeah, I think the more that you're selfless, the more opportunities come to you. Specifically in the gardens, that's all I can speak about because that's what I know about. I'm just sharing my experience in regards to what has worked for me. You know, this may not work for everybody, but it has worked for me. And maybe if you tweak it a little bit to match who you are as an individual, it may also work for you. But yeah, oh, we got some weeds in here. Always multitasking. You can just multitask. It's the greatest thing. Also, earlier I was talking about entitlement, and I think that also applies to the gardens, right? Some gardens are completely at capacity, right? So if people don't get back to you, move on to the next garden. Don't harbor on that one garden. There are over 550 plus gardens in New York City. I'm sure you can find one. It doesn't have to be the one that you're attached to, right? Yeah, some gardens are really just for the elders. Let it be so. If there were like 2 gardens, maybe I'd be saying something a little different. But the fact that there's so many and new ones are constantly being introduced, there is no reason for you to fight somebody on a garden that you can't get into. And also, when it comes to a bed, some of you guys may not get beds. There's so much more to having a bed in a community garden. You can learn so many great skills that will be with you for a lifetime, that you can even teach generations to come, right? There's so much more than gardening. You can learn how to make your own compost. You can learn how to tend to bees. You can learn how to tend to chickens as well. You can also become a herbalist, which is somebody who takes care of all the different trees within the garden. Yeah, I don't want you to always look at something as this is the only way that I can enjoy this space, because it's really not, you know? Yeah. I'm talking about how people can become a part of different gardens in the community, you know? Yeah. Yeah. So thank you so much for watching. I hope this video was informational and beneficial. And let me know if you'd like to hear more topics on, I guess, gardening in New York City, and I'd be happy to answer your questions. Okay, until next time, bye.